wibbly wobbly, timey-wimey, twitchy witchy? Well, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about New York Comic Con and a lot more on today's episode of the Geek Watch podcast.
This is the Geek Watch podcast with Brian Hatcher and Mandy Petrie.
Greetings, Geek Watchers, and welcome to episode 233 of the Geek Watch podcast. I'm Brian Hatcher, with me as always, Geek Watch's very own resident geek goddess, Mandy Petrie.
Hello, Brian.
Like we talked about last week, after this episode, we're going to go on hiatus for 3 weeks while you go and play with ghosts.
Yes.
But fortunately, some things developed because had I had to sit on a lot of this for 3 weeks, this would have killed me. So I'm glad we're going to get a chance to go out right before our break with a bang, because there's definitely a lot to talk about and a lot to think about. I do want to bring up New York Comic Con, which was this week, over the weekend. And I don't want to go into everything, but there was some good news and some not so good news, but not unexpected news. But
Okay.
I will mention, first of all, Tom Holland's going to be real busy
Oh,
over
okay.
the course of the next few, because he will be shooting Spider-Man 4 next summer.
Okay.
And of course, next spring is when they're going to start principal photography for Avengers Doomsday.
Maybe
So-
long way home? I don't know. The road home?
A brand new home.
Okay.
That's going to be the question. Are they going to continue with that, or was this like a trilogy that now this is a new cycle of some kind? Not sure. They aren't saying a whole lot, which is surprising because, of course, we are talking about Tom Holland. And Tom Holland not saying a whole lot is amazing because normally he does. But
Yeah, they must have told him nothing. They just must have said, hey, another Spider-Man movie.
yeah, well,
That's it.
well, he did say he read the script. He and Zendaya did get a chance to read the script, and he didn't talk about it. This young man's learning, which is good. And keeping secrets are really important when it comes to movies like that. And the other movie that we found out that he's going to be in a Christopher Nolan film with Matt Damon.
Okay.
And that's all that we know.
Okay.
The only thing that's beneficial is that the movie will not take place in modern times. So it may take place in the past, may take place in the future, but that's all that's official. Now, there's a rumor that it is a 1920s vampire movie,
Okay.
which, if that's true, and it's possible, again, this is a rumor, take it with a grain of salt,
Right.
because, of course, we all have high blood pressure, so we should only take a grain of salt.
Right.
But if that's the case, this is going to be a really interesting 2 years for vampire movies, because Ryan Coogler is coming out with a vampire movie called Sinners. And of course, Christmas, we're getting Nosferatu.
Yeah.
So vampires are the thing now, I guess.
Yeah, we're getting a resurgence. Yeah.
Yes. They're coming back from the dead. They're coming back from the dead. But not all is good for the world of vampires, because shock and surprise, Variety noticed that Blade has been taken off of Marvel's schedule.
Oh.
No surprise there. It was supposed to come out next year, which is, honestly, they didn't have a script. They don't have a director. And so that would be really pushing it if that was going to happen. But Marvel didn't make any big announcement about it. It just, Variety noticed, oh, it's not on the schedule anymore. 2028, there's 3 unnamed Marvel projects that are listed, but that's about it. At this point, we're not sure. We don't really know if Blade is being delayed once again, or they're just said, forget about it, it's not going to happen. And they've just basically given up on it. We have no idea. And Marvel hasn't really made an announcement about it, because their policy, it seems like, the quiet quitting of projects. They just don't say anything about it. But they've had to shift things around, especially with the new policy that they're, at the very most, you're getting 3 Marvel movies a year. 2 is what they consider optimal. 3 is the absolute limit. If we're getting a Blade movie, 2029, 2030 maybe, I wouldn't go to Vegas and bet on it, but at the same time, you've got somebody who's really excited about doing this movie, who's a 2-time Oscar award-winning actor. And I believe it was him wanting to do the movie, basically going to Marvel and Disney and saying, I'd like to do a Blade movie. And they're like, oh yeah, let's do a Blade movie. And they've been scrambling ever since, but apparently they just haven't been able to pull the trigger on this. I don't know. But we did get an announcement that the Daredevil TV series, the new one, will begin March 4th of next year.
Okay.
So we now have a
Excellent.
date. I'm really looking forward to that, especially if Marvel's going to be able to continue the quality of their television, because it's been pretty good.
It has
honestly.
been, yes.
And we're definitely going to mention that. But before we get to that, let me go ahead and mention Penguin. And we're not going to spoiler this because I know you haven't seen any of it yet. It's funny how both Penguin and Agatha have been running side to side.
Right.
And how they're going to end about the same time. It's been the first time in a long time where I've been captivated by 2 television shows at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Usually there's one show that I'm following, and that's basically the only thing I'm interested in.
Right.
The fact that we had 2 great TV shows running simultaneously, and both of them, the writing has been amazing. And this last episode of Penguin, just when you think they can't up the stakes, oh my God, they upped the stakes. Again, not going into any spoilers, definitely the 2 things that I can say is that just when you thought Penguin, Oz Cobb, could not get more twisted and demented, he does. And just when you think Sophia can't get more powerful and more cunning, she does. There's a lot to be developed. And I think it's like 2 episodes. They've only really got a couple of episodes left. So they're coming to a head. Still at this point, I know Penguin's the name on the show. I don't know if he's going to pull this one out. I'm not even sure that as an audience member, I want him to. Somebody terrible is going to win. I just don't know who that's going to be.
Right.
I did mention last time that I thought Victor, the kid, might wind up getting red-shirted. Since then, and although there's nothing in the show that really makes me think it's going to lean this way, I would say this is for me, this is a possibility. But I think there's another path for Victor. As much as Oz has been mentoring him and teaching him the importance of sticking up for yourself and doing what's best for you and the hell with the other guy, I think there's a possibility Victor might wind up betraying Oz and siding with Sophia.
Wow.
It would be real messed up if that's what happens, especially with what they've set up for it. I think it's an interesting possibility. And like I said, after this last episode and a lot of the stuff that was going on, it makes me think that would be an interesting theme to play on. For me, that would be an interesting twist. And it wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility because in some ways they've set it up a little bit. And we've got more episodes. They could play it a little bit, again, a little more down that road, but it's possible. But yeah, the writing has been so amazing in Penguin. I've loved that show. It's the second coming for me of Breaking Bad.
Mm-hmm.
It's completely blown me away. And then after I watched that show, then we get Agatha All Along, which you have seen. And
Yes.
we're going to talk spoilers because we have to. Because I've got so many things I want to talk to you about this show. But before we do that, tradition dictates, I have to ask, what did you think?
Oh, wow. Well, talk about nonlinear storytelling. This was a masterclass in nonlinear storytelling, so that was great. And of course, it's absolutely heartbreaking. And you know this one's not coming back because it's a sacrifice and you can't nullify the sacrifice. So that's what's important. You know she's gone for good.
Well, she is, but she isn't. Lives her
Wibbly
life out-
wobbly, timey-wimey. And
Right. She lives her life out of
sequence.
she knows where it begins and she knows where it ends, but she's still jumping along her timeline.
Slaughterhouse-Five.
There's a lot of that. So
Yeah.
we don't know how many, but there's still some moments in her life that she still needs to go through because, of course, at the end, you see her as the young girl.
Just beginning to learn her craft.
Exactly. And the
Yeah.
first time you see her smile, basically, because she knows how it starts, she knows how it ends, and however the rest of her life goes, jumping through her timeline, she has that now. In a sense, she's really grounded because she has her waypoints.
And we do get to really see that Billy is still conflicted. Am I Billy? Am I William?
Yeah.
He still has that going through his head. We know definitively that he doesn't feel for Wanda. So if they ever did meet, he would say, "You're not my mother. I have a mother." That would be a heartbreaking meeting there. That could be something in the future, would be an interesting meeting. We're still getting those characters, so that's excellent. And Agatha says she's dressed up as Elphaba and says she's based on me. I love that. It's wonderful. And you were spot on that Lilia had to dress up as the stereotypical witch.
Yeah,
and they were.
And
plucked straight from Disney.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, we got some Maleficent.
We got Maleficent. We got Grimhilda from Snow White. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we got the whole thing.
Yep.
Now, what I love about this, and for writers, there's always the pantsers versus plotters. Some writers, like Stephen King, love to come up with a premise and just, like the saying goes, you're like on a road in the middle of the night. You got your headlights on. You can only see that far in front of you, and you just keep driving and get somewhere, which I've done that kind of writing before. It's nice. But especially with the storytelling that we had in Agatha All Along, episode 7, there was some architecture that had to happen. You weren't going to stumble into a lot of that. You had to map the course because a lot of it popped up in other episodes. And especially that one scene where Lilia is doing her cards for herself. First of all, I had seen pictures of these cards. It never occurred to me that was her spread. But they designed the cards because they're supposed to look like the different characters in the show. I thought that was just a cute, awesome little thing that Disney did for marketing. Which is fine because obviously they have done some really cool marketing. You go into their shop, all of the witches' necklaces or brooches, you can get them all. In fact, I did see a video of Catherine Hahn at Disneyland get her ears.
Her ears, yes, I've seen it too. Oh, and she basically she cries. Yes, it's beautiful.
Yeah, with...
This was better than getting an Academy Award. She was just like, I've made it,
Yeah, it's like it has the brooch in the center and the ears of the branches of the trees on the Witch's Road. Great stuff. And so I figured, this was part of the marketing, but the fact that it all ties in and it ties into stuff that was there the whole time. Some of it I caught, but, I was like, oh, that's like off of the tarot card. But the fact that all the cards have appeared in the episodes in one way or another. It was a master class. And like you say, nonlinear storytelling. And we had talked about those moments where Lilia's muttering some weird thing. And it's like, well, we'll see this later. And how it all tied in for that episode. And we got this all from Lilia's point of view. So we were talking about Christopher Nolan, Memento.
Yep.
And this whole idea of the nonlinear storytelling to simulate the fact that his short-term memory is gone. And so being able to feel what it's like to be Lilia and have to live your life out of sequence.
Right.
And there were little pieces of Lilia's performance during the show, little things that she said that I didn't realize were her jumping around.
Wait, am I kooky or am I whimsical?
Yeah. I love you guys. That one especially. I was like, oh, okay. She's jumping around. But she makes this wonderful sacrifice to save her coven. And although to some degree, and this is a very small nitpick, and I even barely call it a nitpick, the Salem 7, we didn't get to do a whole lot with them. But at the same time, I do love how Lilia was able to dispatch them and take care of that situation. And of course, give Agatha a little taste of the future. It'll be interesting to see how that develops.
Yep.
This episode was amazing. This was some of the best storytelling that I've seen. And yes, I know Marvel Television, Disney Plus, they have this habit of putting out a great show that doesn't manage to stick the landing at the end. I know that. And I've made it a point not to talk about directors and writers in reviews because, again, not wanting to dump on somebody. But this is going to be the absolute opposite. I feel like I have to say, Jac Schaeffer, she's amazing as a writer, as a director, putting all of this together. The work she did on WandaVision, being able to put a show that was even coherent during COVID was masterful, but everything she was able to do in that show, what she has been able to do in Agatha All Along, It's sad that she's not going to be able to write and direct for Vision Quest because Agatha All Along took too much of her time. And so they're going to have to pass that on to someone else. It's a pity because I would love to see what she could do with Vision. But this show, the writing has been top notch, and episode 7 may very well be the best episode of this entire show. But we get the last 2 episodes next week. Mm-hmm. We'll get the last of Penguin over the next week or so. We're going to get the last Venom movie. Yeah. Starting this week. And we get 3 weeks of a haunted play.
Yes.
And we're episode 224 in a month or so. All we will have to say when we return, I have no idea, but I guess we'll see.
We shall see.
And with that said, we come to the end of episode 223. Thank you for listening, and tune in next time for the latest in geek news and views with the Geek Watch podcast. From Andy Petrie, this is Brian Hatcher, reminding all the Geek Watchers out there, we're all geeky about something. Be proud of yours. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Geek Watch podcast. If you enjoyed this program, don't forget to like and subscribe on your preferred platform and share this podcast on your social media. For links to all the ways you can listen to the Geek Watch podcast, as well as leave comments and suggestions, visit our website at geekwatch.net. The Geek Watch podcast is a Hanging J production.